Hey folks, welcome to another edition of Fitness Friday Posi-TIPS with Rachelle. It's always great to be here with you on Fitness Friday, the best day of the week. Gotta love it. Folks, continuing this important series on leadership lessons and going to talk a little bit more about confidence. And I was going to have two topics today in this episode. I'm actually just going to have one, and I'm actually going to pull out the other topic I had planned, and I'm going to do probably a 3 or 4 episode series on confidence later this summer, probably late July, early August. There's so much that could be said about confidence, and I want to do a whole separate series on confidence. But this time, I'm going to kick this episode off. A few weeks ago, I talked about these leadership lessons, and I talked about testing and adversity, how leaders, no matter who or what you're leading, you are going to be tested. There's just no ifs, ands, buts about it. And so, folks, and one thing I mentioned in that particular episode, actually it was 2 or 3 episodes in that short series, sub-series of episodes on adversity, dealing with adversity, and that was resisting saying or doing the wrong thing when under pressure or facing adversity. Hey, adversity is tough. You're going to be tested, you're going to be tried, there's going to be a lot of pressure, all types of pressure, perhaps dealing with some experiences, certainly the COVID epidemic, dealing with experiences you may have never dealt with before, and it's just going to be an absolute nightmare or challenge that you're dealing with. But one thing that I certainly said was we all have to, as leaders, we have to rise above that. We always have to rise above that. And certainly the public relations nightmares that abound, from leaders, certainly leaders, but all types of staff or employee members, but certainly leaders who say or do the wrong thing and end up essentially just enabling their organizations, corporations, entities, nonprofits to take huge public relations hits, and other hits certainly that I won't get into, but wanted to highlight this one example that certainly came out this week. In case you haven't heard, now there are several different news organizations that have reported this, but the first one that I saw was CNN, so CNN Business, CNN.com. So the business section on Monday had an article, actually Tuesday, June 9th, pardon me. And so Greg Glassman, the title of the article, Greg Glassman resigns as CrossFit CEO after controversial statements about George Floyd. And so this is not too much of a lengthy article, but don't want to turn this into a whole conversation, a public relations conversation about how the consequences, certainly the negative consequences that will result of doing or saying the wrong thing. And just we as leaders, we have to be very, and this is something that I learned, as an undergraduate in Louisiana, because I was a double major in public relations in Spanish, but Dr. Linda K. Martin, and she teaches in South Louisiana, the university that's in Thibodeau, so it's southwestern Louisiana or southeastern Louisiana, one of the universities that's in Thibodeau, whichever one, but she taught us in those public relations classes, you've got to be very disciplined. As a public relations person, you have to be very disciplined in your messaging. You have to be very disciplined. You have to resist the urge to fly off the handle, to do or say something that is going to, in some cases, destroy the reputation of your organization. And we see there are a number of examples, and while certainly organizational reputations and stock prices and all of that may certainly not be destroyed, any negative consequences that certainly could have been prevented is always going to be the best choice. So as leaders, we have to be very careful, and we talked in that one episode, I talked about emotional intelligence and being very thoughtful about our words and our actions. And so I'm going to read a little bit of this. I want to get to some of the highlights in terms of how it impacted, how his behaviors impacted CrossFit. And so here we go. Embattled CrossFit CEO Greg Glassman is resigning after he sparked outrage over his response to nationwide protest against racial injustice and police brutality. In a statement Tuesday, Glassman said he decided to retire after he created a rift in the CrossFit community and unintentionally hurt many of its members. Those who know me know that my sole issue is the chronic disease epidemic. Glassman said, I know that CrossFit is the solution to this epidemic and that CrossFit headquarters and its staff serve as the stewards of CrossFit affiliates worldwide. I cannot let my behavior stand in the way of headquarters or affiliates' missions. CrossFit has been embroiled in a controversy for the past week. First, because gym owners said they were dismayed by the company's failure to quickly put out a statement expressing solidarity with protesters or support for black athletes, as dozens of corporations did in the days following George Floyd's death. Then on Saturday, Glassman posted several controversial tweets referencing Floyd's death and the coronavirus pandemic. I'm actually going to read all of this. Glassman that day criticized a statement from the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation calling racism a public health issue by responding, Floyd 19. In a follow-up tweet, Glassman said the Health Research Institute's coronavirus model failed, and he criticized it for modeling a solution to racism. Glassman's tweets pushed Reebok and other brand partners, including gyms, to distance themselves from CrossFit. Glassman apologized and walked back the tweets on Sunday, saying that he and CrossFit will not stand for racism. Glassman will be replaced as CEO by Dave Castro, the director of the CrossFit Games. I'm honored to take on the role of CEO of CrossFit, Castro said in a statement. I hope to do right by affiliates, trainers, athletes, and other members of the CrossFit community around the world and never lose sight of the mission Greg established for us all. So here we go. Not going to get into a deep, long conversation about this, but yet another example. How one or two tweets, the backlash that resulted, caused him to resign, but more importantly, the loss of the brand partnerships and sponsorships. Okay, Reebok sponsored the CrossFit Games, and so I mean they were very quick in terms of dropping CrossFit. And so you think about the negative ramifications for the affiliates, which are the CrossFit boxes. So each of those individual ones, the owners of those CrossFit boxes are called affiliates and not franchisees. It's a whole different business model. Won't get into all of that. But see, just one tweet, and there's been a number of different examples that have happened, of course, not only in this situation, but just all types of situations. We know that social media abounds, and so any mistakes that any impulsivity and anything that you do that this again is just not well thought out, impulsive and divisive, and all of that is going to come back to get you, And so this was pretty big news this week that Greg Glassman, he's been on. I've highlighted him a number of times in Fitness Fridays, certainly on Fitness Fridays over the years. He's been on CNBC a number of times. And so, of course, now, that's going to come to an end. And so that's going to leave. He was one of the CNBC darlings of the fitness industry because of the success that he had built with CrossFit. So now that's going to leave the CEO of Lifetime and the CEO of Planet Fitness as the fitness darlings. And so, but just a very, very poor example. And so that's why we as leaders, folks, we have to be very disciplined in our messages, disciplined in our speech, but also just the ability to empathize with people, to try to understand other points of view, but just recognize. And that's why I said, you can, online reviews of fitness facilities, and I mentioned this in that testing and adversity episodes. You can see if someone is sensitive to criticism, like an owner, say you have a private facility, an owner is sensitive to criticism, and members or former members go online to that particular facility's, gym's website, studio's website, and write negative feedback. You will see the owner, not just of fitness facilities, but this is all types of businesses, all types of companies. And the owner or whoever's responding, but a lot of times it'll be the owners, and we'll see them responding, lashing out, just saying horrible things in the face of that critical feedback. And so things like that Again, that is right there on whether it's Google reviews, Yelp reviews, other types of reviews, right there for current members or potential future members to see that. Combative type of responses, revengeful, hateful, all of that. Just very sensitive to criticism. So that insecurity and lack of confidence is really the problem. And so that individual responds harshly to any type of criticism. And those reviews can be just as powerful as any marketing campaign that you pay for. And so you've got to be very careful. And if you don't handle criticism well, it just hire a public relations person, hire a firm, hire someone else to be able to handle that responsibility. Who perhaps is certainly less sensitive to criticism, is able to be more objective, which is actually the subject of this episode, and is able to respond in a professional manner, in a cordial manner, in a more gracious manner. But it just pains me when I see owners responding to reviews of all different types, yelling virtually, in all caps, and telling the person that they're wrong, and they're calling them all kind of horrible names. And I'm thinking, this person is doing their brand an irreparable damage, because it's all right here, and the internet doesn't forget, as it's often said. So just recognize, this is a public relations nightmare. And you can see in this day and age, companies, large corporations, particularly those that sponsor events and activities and things like that, they are having a very low or no tolerance for any type of these negative controversies, these negative situations that their individuals, entities that they may be sponsoring, being engaged in. So just recognize that. I saw that and I said, you know what? That's why it is so important, particularly as owners. And I talked about, Elon Musk, brilliant, done some wonderful things, very innovative, Tesla and all of that. Highlighted him on the front cover of Inc. magazine, but there's been some articles in terms of, impulsive things that he says and does, and all of this and that. And it's just, we never want to be our own worst enemy, like I pointed out in that episode. So just folks, I just had to kick off with this. Life is hard enough. Entrepreneurship, small business ownership, any type of leadership, corporate leadership is hard enough. The last thing we want to do is become our own worst enemy. Because it's going to come back to bite you, so to speak. And so we never want to be in that situation. So we got to evaluate our values. We got to evaluate how we operate. And in this particular episode, I want to segue in now into the importance of objectivity. The importance of objectivity, particularly as it relates to leadership and as it relates to confidence. And so, folks, objectivity. Being able to, and this is something, I couldn't have an episode without bringing out the old hefty SWOT analysis. But I want to frame a little bit differently here for this part of my conversation, this part of my discussion here on objectivity. And so you've heard me a lot of times talk about the SWOT analysis, highlight examples of the SWOT analysis. So I'm going to be highlighting some more in this episode, but as they relate to objectivity, just in the overall framework of objectivity. But let me point out a little blind spot with the SWOT analysis. So marketing teams across the world live and die, breathe SWOT analyses. Amazon, again, your top corporations are just fanatical about evaluating what is going on in this market, what's going on, what's our overall macro level view, what is going on in this region. This is something you have to keep your eyes and attention focused on. But guess what? As we think about the SWOT, the strengths and weaknesses, so these are internal. So just think about a gym, a studio, whatever. So these two are internal. What are the strengths of your facility or facilities? What are the weaknesses externally? What are the opportunities and threats? And so where objectivity, that's this blind spot that can exist. And it just occurred to me this morning, and I said, you know what, I really got to drop this into this episode. And that is, if you have a very difficult time being objective, the SWOT analysis is going to be, even if you try to do one, it is not going to be thorough. It is not going to be as helpful as it would be if completed by someone or a team or a group or an agency or a firm that is able to be objective. Because if you tell yourself, my studio, my facility, yeah. If I were to ask you, so what are your strengths? And you're able to rattle them off and list them with rapid fire succession, no problem. But then if I were to ask you, so what are your weaknesses? And you were to look at me with a deer in headlights look, because you can't identify any weaknesses, because you can't see, you're so blinded by, yes, an inability to admit weakness or failures or struggles or imperfections. That's a confidence issue. That's an insecurity issue. That's, we can all get into a conversation on perfectionism and all of this and that. But folks, each and every human being on the planet, yes, this is speaking in terms of entities or fitness facilities, studios, and all of that. But just, we have to remember, just as human beings, step one, as individuals, we all have strengths and weaknesses. We all have strengths and weaknesses. So we need to have a healthy, balanced view of ourselves to recognize, yeah, I do a lot of things well, but I do have some weaknesses. There's things that I don't do so well at all. And so if we take that up a notch from an individual perspective, and then all of a sudden as a leader, from a leadership perspective, an inability to uncover, discuss, admit weaknesses can be perilous for your facility or facilities. And I've said this on a number of episodes. If this is something that you have problems with, ask other people. Look at your reviews. Listen to former member, even prospective member feedback. They come in and they tour your facility and they say, well, I've toured 2 other gyms or 2 other studios and they have this. Do you have this? And you don't have it. So that's got to be some feedback and say, well, okay, perhaps that's something will that fit? Is that within my business model? Is that within my parameters, my operational parameters? So we've got to be open and objective and willing to evaluate what your weaknesses are. Online reviews abound with information on weaknesses of your facility or facilities. You can do member surveys. You can walk around and just individually talk to people. You can have advisory panels, advisory boards for your members. There's so many different things that you can do to gather feedback on your strengths as well as your weaknesses. And this is something particularly in a leadership role that, the higher the level, certainly, it can be it's not easy, but somewhat easier to distance yourself from the granular details that exist that go on in a facility, because maybe 2 or 3 levels above the individual employee who's dealing with the strengths and weaknesses, particularly the weaknesses and member complaints and all of that. And so a leader 2 or 3 or 4 levels up may never get the feedback, may never see the feedback. And so that's why we as leaders need to solicit feedback. We need to solicit feedbacks. And so particularly from a competitive strategy standpoint, all right, your competitors, particularly your major competitors, they know what your weaknesses are. And in some cases, they are selling or they are marketing against those weaknesses, because they can say, well, that's actually the weakness of this facility or this chain. It's actually a strength of ours. And so it is so important. It is objectivity. But folks, if you have a hard time seeing outside yourself and taking different perspectives and looking at different points of view, if it's all this tunnel vision, I'm the best, I'm number one, I don't make mistakes, I'm perfect, my facility or facilities are perfect, that is not the truth. That is not the truth. And that is going to hurt you. If it hasn't already, that is going to hurt you, because you are competing with people that are open and listening to what members and former members and prospective members are saying, but it requires objectivity. The ability to say, yes, this is my heart, this is my soul, this is my passion. I spent 20 years building this gym and I'm operating it, and this is my heart and soul. And so that's all true, but you don't want to believe that old saying, you don't want to believe your own press. You gotta be open. You gotta be open to what people are saying. You have to be open. You have to be objective and see things. Okay, well, I feel that my facility has this strengths or these strengths, but if members, especially former members, are telling me this, or I go online and I see Google reviews saying that, perhaps, particularly as I've mentioned before, when you start to see patterns of complaints, patterns of negative and positive feedback, that's a pretty good sign. That's a pretty good sign that there's an issue there. But an individual that has a tough time being objective is just going to ignore that and just keep right on going, and losing members, and perhaps certainly not even acquiring new members as a result of all of that. So we never want to be closed-minded. We don't ever want to think our way is the right way or our way is the only way. We've got to be open. We've got to be more objective. And this is something, we can't play favorites. Our facility, business, whatever the entity may be, corporation, is not the only game in town. I mean, it may be right now in some instances, but it won't be for long, particularly, again, with the shift towards some consumer behavior towards online and more tech-oriented approaches to things. And so, folks, we've got to be open. This objectivity issue is something from a personal standpoint, and certainly a professional standpoint, I have worked on a lot. Because, folks, this too was, you want to have favorites. You want to just think one way is the right way or the only way. No, absolutely not. And so even when I think about Fitness Fridays over the years, and I think about how each and every episode, it is a truly an episode, and particularly on Fitness Friday versus Posi-TIPS, when I tend to discuss the industry and entities and chains and all of that within the industry requires a high degree of objectivity. And as I stated before, you're never going to see me on an episode just sitting here, just doing a rah-rah, week after week rah-rah episodes on whatever gym or chain, whatever the case that I may be a member of at the time. It hasn't happened in the past. It's not happening right now. And it's not going to happen in the future. I am not a spokesperson for any facility. I am pro-fitness. I'm pro-fitness entity of industry. So I am supportive of all entities within the fitness industry, and I have to be. And so that's why these episodes, on a personal level, from a leadership development standpoint for me personally, have been good, consistent exercises in objectivity and recognizing. And you folks don't want to hear that every week. You don't care. And I know that. You lose people. The inability in a situation like this where I would just get up here every week and just say, become this commercial for one gym or another type of gym or a chain. People lose interest in that very quickly. What maintains interest is the ability to tune in and say, well, okay, Rachelle is going to be fair. Rachelle is going to be fair. Her attitude towards any entity or whatever, it's going to be fair, and she happens to be a member of the gym or the chain or whatever, that feedback is going to be balanced. There's going to be no rah. And so that's certainly been my take. So I take advantage of any opportunity to just take a step back and be objective about situations. Because it's easy for us to just, again, have that tunnel vision. Do you have tunnel vision today? Could you right now, if I were to ask you, okay, do a SWOT analysis, based on what you know on the top of your head, off the top of your head, can you do a SWOT analysis based on your market, your region, for your facility or facilities? Or would you struggle because, you can only identify strengths, you can't identify any weaknesses? Or because you're not, in tune enough to what's going on externally, you can't identify any opportunities that exist. You can't identify any threats to your business because as far as you're concerned, you're the only in the best game in town, and no one should want to become a member of any other facility or facilities but yours. Okay, we can see what a threat that is. We like I said, we don't want to be our own worst enemy. We've got to be open. You got to realize that facilities and chains and studios got to have a balanced view. There are always strengths and weaknesses, always areas in which we can all improve. So we don't want to have a closed-minded view. Yeah, but I'm only willing to discuss and identify strengths because guess what? These are what cost you members, whether it's prospective future members our current members. These weaknesses drive people away. So we want to be objective. We want to be objective. We're human. We make mistakes. But we own up to those mistakes, we identify those mistakes, and we do our best not to keep making those mistakes. And so that's the best we can do, but it starts with being objective. We can talk about from an HR standpoint, just how much turnover results from a facility or facility leadership team's inability to be objective. One thing that you will see, you look at Indeed.com, Glassdoor.com, that F word, favoritism. You will see it across the board. So-and-so plays favorites, so-and-so has played favorites, and you will see that favoritism. What is that? An inability where current staff members or former staff members have identified. That's a leadership issue, an inability to be objective. Now it's hard because we like people, it's human nature to just want to say, well, this person does a great job and they're just wonderful to work with. But then how you treat that person versus another person who may not be as strong, who may not have as long of a tenure with your company. That's the test. And that's why that favoritism rule, inside and certainly outside of the fitness rule, from a leadership, from a management, from a supervisory standpoint, is something that you see over and over and over again. So objectivity, folks, is something that we are going to have to work at. This is going to be, again, from a leadership development standpoint, this is something, an area where we are going to be constantly challenged. How are we able to be open to what's going on in the marketplace? How open are we willing to be about our own weaknesses, on a personal level, facility level, chain level, whatever the case may be. So we've got to be open. And so in the spirit of objectivity now, I am doing a analysis on the COVID pandemic's impact on fitness facilities, particularly major chains, and certainly open to smaller facilities and their responses, particularly if there's something good, some best practices there. But it's just always easier to compile information and all of that on your larger chains, which tend to get more press. And so you can follow what they're doing and what they're not doing and all of this and that. And so this has been going on since the pandemic, so it is fascinating to see how different entities are responding to the pandemic and how they've responded in terms of having the home work-ins. And so you got it, Planet Fitness came up very, very, very quickly on after gyms were closing with the home work-in, the United We Move concept. And then you got Edge Fitness that also replicated that same concept, as well as Crunch Fitness, another major chain. And so, but I want to highlight a different take on that, and that is Anytime Fitness. I've talked about Anytime Fitness here over the years, and I often say to myself, truly, like 3 or 4 times a year, the sleeping bear of the fitness industry has been awakened again. Because you'll see them, very cyclical type of quarterly marketing efforts. And so now, again, later here, received this email from Anytime Fitness here in Novi. So they've got another national marketing campaign going on based around this. So came to me from Kylie at Anytime Fitness here, and the title of this email is Join Anytime Fitness At Home Challenge. So what I see here, it says 2020 is still your year. And you can see the branding for Anytime Fitness up top. And what that says is 2020 is still your year. 21-day virtual challenge. And it goes on to read. And in case I can't remember if I said June 9th, 2020, so this came to me at 4:22 p.m. Hey, Rachelle, if you haven't already, sign up before it's too late. Take advantage of this great deal now to experience the results you've been looking for. This challenge will provide an easy plan to follow for at-home exercise, goal setting, and meal planning. Enjoy virtual weekly check-ins with your very own coach who will provide guidance, motivation, and advice. Get ready to have fun, improve your fitness level, and get real results. Challenge starts June 15th. 21-day challenge includes your own personal coach with virtual kickoff meeting, 3 personal weekly check-ins, customized at-home workout plan, meal prep guide and recipe ebook. Then a focus on overall wellness, which includes developing personal goals, create new habits, achieve long-term results. It also includes motivation, accountability, guidance, prizes, fun, and results for only $21, $149 plus value. And then there's a button here, sign me up. And then it has live virtual group sessions via Zoom, also available for additional cost. Contact for details. Space is limited. Contact us today, but space is limited to 20 people. And what you can see there is Zoom. And you can see the group fitness classes. So you've got Zoom, and you see individuals in all these different living rooms and houses connected on that group Zoom conference. And so I noticed this right after the gyms closed, and I received the email from them where the Anytime Fitness approach was utilizing Zoom. Connect with a coach, connect with a trainer, and now they've got group sessions as well for an additional cost. So in addition to the home work-in, the overall home work-in concept, they took it a step further to actually have Zoom where the trainer, the leader, the instructor can actually see people, so it's not one-sided in terms of someone watching, a Facebook Live or an Instagram, whatever like that workout, and following along. This is actually two-way. So the instructor, the group fitness instructor trainer, will be able to look at these individuals, whether it's one-on-one or a group, and evaluate form and give feedback on a one-to-one level. So like I stated, from a spirit of a SWOT analysis, you can see the strength that they brought to that. The home, okay, folks are at home, many people, different states and stuff are opening up, and gyms are opening up and things like that slowly. But you can see when they came up with the angle that we are going to take with this concept is we're going to utilize Zoom. And you think about that from a training standpoint in terms of retention, the impact that it can have on member retention because they are getting that one-on-one feedback. It could be someone who just, say hypothetically person's a member of Anytime Fitness, and they go and they do their own thing. But because of these, again, for $21, these challenges and these things that they've had during the gym closures, the ability to connect one-on-one, and so you think about it, yes, from a training standpoint for someone who may need that accountability and motivation and all of that's in that, but just from a general member, from a customer service standpoint, the ability to interact with a trainer or group fitness instructor. I don't know if the owner, the owners, Patrick and Brittany May, I don't know if they pop on there, but it's just an opportunity to visually see your members, to have them see you, just, hey, how you doing? Let's work out together as a group. But it's just a really good approach in terms of for Anytime. We know their model is different. Their volume needs in terms of members is certainly much lower than your typical chains, much smaller facilities, but they were able to really take advantage of this and have a unique perspective on these Zoom workouts. And so perhaps someone who's worked out by him or herself prior to the COVID shutdowns will decide, hey, well, you know what, when the gyms open back up, I want to work with a trainer, or this group instructor or this trainer has really built a relationship with me since the shutdown through these Zoom workouts. I think I want to sign up for training. So see, there's just different levels of potential impact that something like this can have, for only $21. And so from a competitive standpoint, that's why you always got to know what's going on. And I often say, Anytime, they've got a whole lot of, more than 4,000 locations, and so they're pretty ubiquitous, and certainly in decent sized markets. And so a few times a year, the sleeping bear will wake up, and they'll have these challenges to certainly for member retention, which is a big issue and a big concern for gyms across the country, but certainly in non-COVID times too. This is just part of what they do. And so again, because their membership volume needs are far lower. I mean, if they were to get 10, 20 members, per quarter, they're doing pretty well versus a very large entity that may need hundreds of individuals to sign up in a month. You just have to study the models and see how they differ in terms of membership needs and all of that, and just the financial models and how the financials play out. So Anytime Fitness, their 21-day virtual challenge is a threat to other entities in the industry. And so you got to keep in mind what's going on in your market. So that's an example. If I didn't have any objectivity, I wouldn't be able to just look at situations like this. And I'm constantly seeing and looking at the good that is coming from just the innovation and the creativity, that the collaboration and teamwork that the COVID pandemic has caused and fostered during these tough times for the fitness industry and in other industries as well. A teamwork and collaboration that you wouldn't see otherwise. So yes, it has been a tragic pandemic, a lot of heartbreak, death, hardship, struggles, but in any and all types of adversity, there are always, there's always silver linings. There's always blessings. There's always, because things that happen, things that we learn to do things, or we're challenged in new ways, we grow, we learn, our character is developed. So this is an opportunity for us to learn and grow and do things that we perhaps wouldn't have done otherwise. I'll give you a ton of examples on that, but it's happening all across the industry and all across the world in various industries. And speaking of teamwork and collaboration, I want to talk about here what is going on. Again, we'll talk about how the COVID pandemic is impacting the fitness industry, particularly fitness industries, fitness entities within the fitness industry. And so what we see here is a level of collaboration that has been remarkable. And so in May 28th, 2020, at 11:13 a.m., Pamela Kufal, who's a content director for Club Industry Magazine, published this article entitled "Gym Owners Take Action to Get States to Reopen Health Clubs." And so they highlight several different several different states here. We have, petitions in some states. Some people, individual gym owners, and all of that had lawsuits, and all of that to speed up reopenings. And so I want to highlight what's going on here, just specifically in Michigan. Hold on, So Michigan, on May 28th, it reads here, on May 22nd, more than 120 Michigan gyms under the group, the League of Independent Fitness Facilities and Trainers, sued Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer and Robert Gordon, the director of the Michigan Health and Human Services. The lawsuit alleges that orders from the two violate the U.S. Constitution and are not narrowly tailored to their purpose as required under constitutional law. Governor Whitmer recently extended the stay-at-home order from May 28th to June 12th due to continued increases in COVID-19 cases in the state. Scott Erskine, the lead attorney for the plaintiffs, noted in a press release announcing the lawsuit. To date, the governor has not responded to at least 3 letters sent by the industry that outline very specific measures that will allow gyms to reopen safely. My clients have stressed that they know how to open safely and are committed to doing so. It is nonsensical that an industry that is in such a unique position to bolster the physical, emotional health of Michiganders remains completely closed, while many other sectors, including restaurants and bars, are permitted to open. And so I clicked on a link and went and found the actual press release from Scott M. Erskine, managing partner, Erskine Law. And so they are based here in Metro Detroit, and so it goes, and this is a long press release, so I can't read any of this. And so what you see and what we've seen certainly here in the state of Michigan and certainly some other states, different response and a different ways of handling the closures. When are we going to reopen? How are we going to reopen? Is it litigation? Is it non-litigation? Is it petitions? So there's various ways of that entities are handling this. And so I was actually unaware of this newly formed League of Independent Fitness Facilities and Trainers. And I actually Googled it, and let me just quickly, got a lot of things here on my laptop. So it says, League of Independent Fitness Facilities and Trainers. Education, support, and a collective voice for Michigan's privately owned, because I'm thinking, oh, I've never heard of this. Like, who's in this? Michigan's privately owned fitness facilities and trainers. And so they've, pretty new, and they've got their mission and all of this and that. So privately owned, that is their niche, and that is what they are doing in terms of banding together, including trainers in that, in the litigation, and what's going on, and so that is that approach. So we got the approach of litigation, as I mentioned, and so want to contrast that in a spirit of balance, in a spirit, again, of being objective. What else is happening? What other response is occurring to the gym closures here in the state of Michigan? So you always want to, it's one thing I always try to do is just provide context. And so I'm going to read this entire article that appeared in Crane's Detroit Business, June 8th, 2020 at 4:28 p.m. Kurt Nagel published this article entitled "Michigan Gym Owners Form Association to Seek Financial Relief in Wake of COVID-19 Pandemic." So, and you see a picture here, and it always, when I scroll down through this, because I get the Crane's Detroit newsletter in the morning, so I'll scroll down, I'll look at the different, but then I always see that when there's a fitness article and Planet Fitness is involved, I'll see this photo, and I'm thinking, oh, Planet's in this. And so, want to read this as it talked about a different approach to this issue. Michigan gym owners are looking for strength in numbers as the coronavirus pandemic rattles the fitness industry. Around 150 fitness club owners have already committed to joining the Michigan Fitness Club Association, formed after the COVID-19 lockdown, said Alyssa Tushman, board co-chair of the association and owner of Burn Fitness, which has locations in Rochester Hills, Clawson, and Livonia. The association is pushing for rental payment relief legislation, and in the long term aims to lobby legislators to offer tax credits to gyms based on membership numbers or make insurance cover membership fees. The idea being that gyms lead to healthier lifestyles, which is a public good. Especially in Michigan, fitness has very little voice, Tushman said. We've had a little more time than usual to think about our industry. The idea was conceived by Donald Jordan, who opened an F45 location in Livonia in late February. Just a few weeks before, this pop-up just came up on the screen and it distracted me. In late February, just a few weeks before being ordered to close. It quickly garnered support from the local industry. Brian Reef, co-owner of PF Michigan Group LLC, the state's largest franchise group for giant Planet Fitness, is co-chair. Governor Gretchen Whitmer lifted the stay-home order last week and has allowed businesses such as dine-in restaurants to reopen and given reopening dates for other industries such as hair and nail salons. Gyms in northern Michigan are allowed to reopen June 10th and statewide on June 15th. Reef told Crane's late last month that he presented his plan to reopen Planet Fitness to the governor, but had not gotten a response. And there's a hyperlink included in that sentence I just read. If you click on it, it takes you to the article that I read a couple weeks ago, where it highlighted, what the leadership that Brian Reef was taking in terms of outlining the plan, pitching the plan, the reopening plan to the governor. So I've already highlighted that article. Just wanted to mention that. Tushman said she and other owners will talk this week with the Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity officials to discuss reopening protocols. She hopes that gyms will be allowed to reopen by July 4th. Even then, they are likely to be limited to half capacity or less, which will not be financially viable for many, considering increased expenses for cleaning and extra staffing. It also remains to be seen how eagerly patrons will return to gyms once open. If we can only be at quarter capacity or half capacity, our leases just aren't going to make sense, she said. How are we going to pay rent and pay our bills? The Michigan Fitness Club Association was incorporated as a nonprofit in the last couple of weeks. It hired Lansing-based Public Affairs Associates as its lobbying firm. Membership costs $750 per year per location. A group called the League of Independent Fitness Facilities and Trainers in Michigan, made up of more than 100 gym owners, filed a lawsuit last month against Whitmer, alleging an abuse of power for keeping gyms closed. Tushman said her association does not support the lawsuit. We have such a long-term playbook. We don't want to do anything adversarial, she said. So when you look at this approach and you think about just how comprehensive it is, where it's not solely focused on reopening, but also recognizing that reopening is just the first step. There's going to be issues, there's going to be challenges post reopening that this particular group is addressing, such as rent relief legislation, or all of those type of things, potential tax credits to gyms, and so two very different approaches. And fair disclosure, you know I'm a member of Planet Fitness, and PF Michigan Group is actually the franchise group that owns my home gym, and actually close to 50 locations in Michigan and in Northern Ohio in the Toledo market. And so from a leadership perspective, and what I see here is, Planet Fitness, and it's the way that it was described here, Brian Reeve, co-owner of PF Michigan Group LLC, the state's largest franchise group for Giant Planet Fitness, is co-chair. I'd like to see this from, and as I mentioned before, the teamwork and collaboration that we are seeing in the fitness industry is unparalleled. Because when I first started reading this article, and I saw the F45, and knew that location in Livonia, and so what you see here, folks, and that is the one of the silver linings of this whole coronavirus pandemic and its impact on the fitness industry, is that you have owners and fitness leaders. I'm not sure if it's all owners and how that's all working, but you've got fitness leaders of competitive gyms and studio and all of that, competitive facilities that are collaborating. And so when I saw this F45 location, this whole idea was conceived by Donald Jordan, who opened an F45 location in Livonia in late February. And then in the next sentence, Brian Reeve is the co-chair. Okay, those are two market competitors. Okay, you've got two locations of Planet in our suburb of Livonia, and you've got that new location of F45. Okay, you got Burn Fitness, which has locations in Rochester Hills. That's another competitor to one of the PF Michigan Group. So Brian Reeve and his two partners, gyms, have locations in Rochester Hills and Livonia. And so what you have here is literally, in many cases, direct competitors. Yeah, again, different setups and different things like that in these individual facilities, but they are all in this particular entity, in this organization, this new nonprofit, coming together. Even in the entity that filed the lawsuit that I mentioned before, they're coming together, trainers coming together, private facilities coming together. So things like this hadn't existed. So think about, from a market analysis standpoint, the coronavirus threat has led to an unparalleled opportunity that entities are taking advantage of, to partner, to collaborate, to collectively share their voice. And as I stated, when I highlighted the plan that Brian Reeve highlighted that article where he pitched the plan to our governor in terms of reopening, these are some of our protocols. When I highlighted that article, and one of the things I said is that, just having, from a leadership perspective, Planet in general, absolutely. The marketing and their advertising that they do in many respects and in many markets, they carry, in my personal opinion, my professional opinion, in many respects, they carry the fitness industry from a marketing and advertising standpoint, because there are thousands and thousands of entities that can't afford to market, that cannot afford, definitely to the extent that Planet does. And so they, from a marketing, from an advertising standpoint, yes, they've got very strong, solid brand recall. People know Planet, they know about the $10 membership, they can recall that, so very strong in that area. So their advertising, certainly in terms of awareness around Planet, and in terms of brand recognition and things like that, brand recall, it's solid, but they do a lot for the fitness industry, because people can't afford that. People can't afford to do that. Okay, Burn Fitness, some of these other entities, with all due respect, they can't afford to take out multiple billboards across our Metro Detroit area. They can't afford to have radio spots and television spots and online advertising, whatever the case may be, direct mail. We know that Planet has very comprehensive marketing efforts, integrated marketing campaigns that entities, quite frankly, just cannot afford. And you've got other entities such as your Lifetime Fitness, Edge Fitness, just as examples. Again, these folks, these are sales-driven models where they've got sales staff, they've got account managers, and so they're if you were to say that there's money that they're investing, marketing or sales, they're paying their salespeople. They're to drive that volume, to drive the foot traffic, to drive memberships, and to have member retention, acquisition as well as retention. So yes, there's differing business models, but still, the point is still the same. Planet, in many respects, subsidizes the marketing that occurs for fitness facilities. Because what happens is, and yes, ideally, everyone would say, yes, I see all the Planet Fitness advertising, I'm going to run to Planet Fitness. But what happens if you have someone that wants a traditional group fitness class? Planet may initially plant that seed to say, okay, fitness, I really got to do something in the midst of this pandemic. What am I going to do when gyms reopen? I saw the United We Move TV ad for those home work-ins for Planet, but I want a traditional group fitness class. So bam, they go to Lifetime Fitness. Bam, they go to Edge. They go to Anytime Fitness. So see that benefits, that awareness, that broad awareness that they are able to generate for the fitness industry, specific to Planet, but there is very general, broad impact, a very big, broad impact that it has on the industry. And when you think about even from the coronavirus pandemic situation, you think about what's going to happen moving forward in terms of the marketing budget, the advertising budget, and how that's going to all play out here for the rest of the year and perhaps next year is going to impact the fitness industry. So when you think about any potential changes in the marketing efforts, activities, budget for Planet, is going to have an overall impact on the industry. So that would certainly be a threat to the overall fitness industry, because they do a lot. And so it's all about, yes, they've got market leadership and spend a lot on advertising. When you think about from a local, state level here in Michigan, the fact that Planet and that PF Michigan Group in particular, one of the franchise groups here in Michigan, there are others, franchisees in Michigan, but as I mentioned in that previous episode before, is that Planet, again, when you own 50 locations overall in Planet in Michigan and northern Ohio, northwest Ohio, and Toledo, you're going to have clout. People are going to listen to you. You can reach out to the Crane's Detroit Business or the Detroit Free Press or Athletic Business, and they are going to listen to you. From a media relations perspective, when you have that economies, that level of economy of scale where you own that many facilities, they're going to listen to you. You're going to get attention. And so it was good to see the collaboration in this particular, certainly in this instance, where you've got the giant, as this article pointed out, giant Planet Fitness partnering with other private, smaller entities that certainly would not have that level, with all due respect, but was certainly not have that level, the ability to command attention and the ability to garner, the ability to garner the stage from a media relations standpoint and all of that. So leveraging the economy of scale of Planet to really help other fitness facilities and entities here in the state of Michigan. It's certainly positive. It's certainly a positive thing. The Michigan Fitness Club Association now, because many of them would not be able to do this on their own. So it was just good to see these competitors coming together to not just have reopening. Yes, that's important, but recognizing there's subsequent issues down the pike that are going to certainly need to be addressed now, but certainly just moving forward. And so this is something good that has come from the pandemic, and I'm gonna close out this conversation part of this episode before I discuss my coronavirus challenge to close it out by California. California, another example of some strong collaboration that is going on. And so Club Industry Magazine, so May 26, 2020, 10:50 a.m., Pamela Kufal, content director of pointed out or published this article entitled California Fitness Alliance Sends Gym Reopening Guidelines to California Governor. And so what we have here, so another extreme example, wonderful example of teamwork and collaboration, unparalleled, but with a slightly different take. Here it is, slightly different take in terms of members, who's a member, and this and that. And that's a good thing, to have variety and just different best practices and see how, from my standpoint, evaluating how things are being done differently in different markets, in different areas, different approaches, and their level of effectiveness. It's wonderful stuff, folks, wonderful stuff. You know I enjoy this kind of stuff. So, but this article goes on to state, not gonna read this all, it goes on to say the California Fitness Alliance, CFA, in parentheses, which formed in April, has sent guidelines to local, county, and state officials about how to reopen California health clubs safely after more than 4,000 fitness locations in the state were shut down in March due to the COVID-19 pandemic. As of May 26th, the state has not allowed health clubs to reopen, affecting many of the more than 180,000 people employed by clubs in the state, according to Francesca Schuler, CEO of InShape Health Clubs. Schuler, along with Randy Carr, president and CEO of California Family Fitness, organized the group, which is made up of gyms, clubs, studios, boutiques, private trainers, vendors, and others in the industry who are committed to helping carry out its mission. So far, the group has 70 partners. In the fitness industry, we often work more independently than collaboratively. Now we look forward to working together and with state and local officials to reopen facilities in a safe manner, Schuler said. We are passionate about helping our community members live healthy lives, and we want to continue to support them on their fitness journeys. And so let me find it here. So I went to California Fitness Alliance, and so you can go to their website, californiafitnessalliance.com. And so they have industry advisors and trade association advisors. And so just to quickly name off so you can get a feel and a flavor for who's leading this particular group. Angel Banos, who is president/CEO of Gold's SoCal Group. Pete Bacchus, who is president, Yuba City Racket Club. Corey Brightwell, CEO of Choose Fitness. Sebastian Jakovics, who is president, CEO of Fitness SF. Randy Carr, president, California Family Fitness. Francesca Schuler, CEO, InShape Health Clubs. Mark Thomas, who is co-CEO, ASFR, and in parentheses, Orange Theory Fitness franchisee. And it has trade association advisors solely. Inclusion of trade, very, very powerful. Josh Lev, who is president, founder, Association of Fitness Studios. And Amy Thompson, Active Interest Media, GM, VP Fitness Group, IDEA, so IDEA Health and Fitness Association. So you've got trade there in addition to the actual fitness industry owners, CEOs. So good teamwork and collaboration there. So folks, yet another example. Coming together. So there's going to be sharing, just in terms of making things happen and getting things done, but just the sharing and learning from one another and saying, yeah, we may be competitors, but we're all, quite frankly, in a tough spot right now. How can we overcome, how can we deal with these challenges collectively as opposed to independently? Because unless you're a planet and you've got that kind of economy of scale, it's tough. It's very tough to get noticed. It's tough because if a person owns one facility, it's in terms of, you could look at lobbying, you look at public relations and public affairs in terms of getting things done. If you're a single entity and you don't have a whole lot of brand awareness and listening connections, it is tough to get things done. So it's wonderful to see, again, these national leading chains partnering with private owners as well as industry and vendors, and in some cases trainers and all of that. So just wonderful teamwork and collaboration. But again, that requires objectivity, looking at the situation objectively and saying, I can't do this on my own by myself. My one gym, my one studio, or my chain, my chain within the chain is not enough to leverage from a lobbying standpoint from getting things done. It's not going to happen. But if we all come together, we can enact positive change and we can help one another brave this pandemic challenge, which is a very, very big one. And so, but it takes confidence to do that, to be open, to be willing to learn from others, to say, hey, we may be competing in the same market, but we can work together. We can work together. It takes confidence to be able to partner with your competitors. It truly does. It truly does, because insecurity will keep you closed-minded and thinking, I'm the best. I'm not talking to them. I don't want to hear what they have to say. No, but if you open your mind, if you have an open mindset, you may learn a lot from them, and you may benefit from perhaps the relationships or their clout or their economy of scale that you don't have. And so that's the beauty of leadership. That is the beauty of being open, the beauty of being objective. Like I said, I'm going to come back to confidence. We're going to do a whole little 3 or 4 part series here on confidence later this summer, but just had to share this. A lack of confidence and insecurity from a leadership standpoint will have you by yourself, struggling, dying, not knowing what to do, not knowing how you're going to make it. But if we, just some humility and some confidence to say, hey, I may not have ever thought to partner with my competitors in the past, but it's necessary now. It is necessary now. So there's power in that. There was power in industry collaboration. So it's wonderful to see that, and here, of course, in Michigan, but other states as well. And so we'll continue to see those types of things. So stay tuned for that, and I'll cover those as they come along here. And so, but folks, I want to wrap this episode up. Rachelle's Coronavirus Challenge. And so, no, my mindset when dealing with adversity, certainly this coronavirus challenge, and that's why at the beginning of this pandemic, I just really sat down and had a meeting with myself, as I always do when it comes to adversity. How is this experience, in this case, how is this pandemic going to change me? How's it going to develop my character? How's it going to make me a better person? And so I've talked to you about selfishness and just how, we've all been challenged in that area, whether you're going to a grocery store and there's 5 items left of something that you went to buy and it's a high demand item. Do you buy one, even if there's no limits? Do you just buy one, or do you buy them all and just say, I don't care about the next people that may be looking for them? Or do you unselfishly leave 3 or 4 for the next person that may come in? So I've talked about that, and how important it is that we think of other people, particularly during this pandemic, and try to help other people and not just hoard everything and think about ourselves only. We should be looking to benefit others. But in this particular challenge, my discussion on this challenge is one thing that I've been reflecting on, and you've heard me say, Rachelle the nonconformist, and I've told you, but for the interest and for the people who may not have seen any of those episodes, I always have new people watching. And so, talking about Rachelle the nonconformist, I've talked about a number of times over the years my struggle with my JROTC, my Army JROTC class, and how that was just a nightmare for me. I planned to join the military. God bless our troops. God bless our veterans. I support our military. I think it's wonderful. But I can honestly say it was that route, that path was not for me. And I'm glad I did a dry run in that JROTC class as opposed to signing up and then probably getting kicked out 24, 48, 72 hours later. You may have heard me just laugh when I said that, but folks, because in that experience, that year in that class, and it was too late to drop the class by the time I realized that this is just not me. This is just not me, because I recognize, with all due respect to everyone, it's just for me, wearing what everyone else is wearing, a uniform, and I want to wear my hair the way I want to wear. I want to wear some high heels. Why do I have to wear these boots? It's just that type of mindset of mine, where I'm just as a person, I like to march to the beat of my own drum, and that is very, very much true. That is very, very much the fact. And so that's why I struggled with that. It was a very challenging year for me, but I learned before taking that next step that, this is just not for me. And this whole issue plays out in various aspects of our lives. So that's just me. You tell me about the new latest gadget, whatever that's on the market, I'm not the first person that's going to be out there trying to get it. I'm actually going to be among the last groups. I'm a slow or a late adopter. You think about market segmentation, I'm definitely a late adopter. Why? Because I don't care what else is going on. Like I don't, it doesn't matter to me what everyone else is doing. I want to do what I want to do when it's right for me, and this and that. So that's how I operate. With all due respect for anybody who may be an early adopter in those type of situations, but that's just not me. I'm just not one that's looking around, basing my actions on what everyone else is doing. You try to sell me something with that bandwagon approach, you're gonna lose me because I don't care what everyone else is buying or what everyone else is doing. So that's just, that whole issue for me is certainly one that's resolute. So I struggled in that class. And so now, in light of this pandemic, I've asked myself, so, Rachelle that struggled in the JROTC class versus now Rachelle in the pandemic. So the conformity and the non-conformity. And one thing I realized, because even now I said, okay, so now always wear my mask, social distance. I honor those CDC guidelines. I honor the Governor Gretchen Whitmer of the state of Michigan here, and Dr. John A., who's our the chief medical officer for the state, their recommendations. And it's like, okay, so in JRTC, when they were like, do this, I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Versus now, and it's like, what is the difference? And the difference is, and I thought about this, where now I can operate with just no problem, and conforming in this situation is different for me now. Why? Because it's an issue for me personally, in my belief, of public health. It's because it's not just me. Now the JROTC decision in my life, that was my life, my career, my future. So, it was truly kind of that kind of compact type of issue. But this one involves other people. So I am, me, I'm a giver. I love people. That's just part of my leadership tact and just leadership gifting. So I love people. I want nothing but the best for people, and I don't want in any way harm people. And so that's why it's for me where you're not going to see me, it's very easy for me to conform in that situation and say, okay, this is what they're recommending. I'm absolutely going to follow those recommendations. But that's the difference. And other people, because I know why. If I get COVID, the chances, I'm going to have an incredibly strong chance of just faring well or getting no symptoms or mild symptoms, just because of my health, excellent health, excellent immune system. Only take over-the-counter medications for allergies and multivitamins and calcium and that's all over-the-counter medication. So my health is real strong, but I work hard at it. I take care of myself. I exercise. But I don't want to risk someone else's life. I don't want to risk someone else's health because I don't know what their health situation is, or someone may be asthmatic or anything like that. So I'm not taking the chance. So see, my ability now in the midst of this pandemic to willfully and enthusiastically conform to the CDC guidelines and these medical recommendations is no problem. No problem. Because it's about other people. It's not just about me, it's about other people. So I recognize that. Whereas before, I just, the non-conformist Rachelle in many situations, that's because that's my life. I wear a seatbelt because I'm concerned about other people. So just different things like that. When another person or other people are brought into the equation, that's where I'm like, no, it's not about me. It's about other people. It's about the both of us. It's a mutual situation, but I just care about people, and I have no problem. So this has taught me something about myself. When it comes to other people, like protecting other people and their health and their lives and all of that, I have no problem conforming. No problem conforming at all, and I have no problem admitting that. And I mentioned last episode, in Shreveport, Louisiana, 26 years ago, May 17, 1994, when I started my journey, my official journey at the Barksdale Air Force Base Fitness Center, and been in gyms, all the way up until May of this year. May 17th was the first morning gyms were closed. And as I stated last week, pause button has been hit on gyms in that area. Why? Because I have two parents there that are high-risk individuals, and it's not about just me. It's about them. It's about me protecting them. It's about me protecting their health and not introducing any unnecessary risks into the equation. which I would do because I spend a lot of time in gyms, and then there's this whole situation where gyms are recommending that people wear masks and not requiring. And objectively speaking, I understand that. There's going to be people, members, don't want to wear masks. They want to just work out and do their own thing without them. I understand that. And then you've got the owners, you've got leaders' perspective from a revenue standpoint. It can be disruptive for them to start requiring that, and then members quitting and getting mad and canceling memberships and all that. So I understand from a revenue standpoint. So I understand all perspectives, but the only perspective that matters for me in this situation is the perspective of me protecting my mother and father in that situation. So the gym button, the gym equation has been put on pause. So not doing that. Like I said, I'm going to be working out at Oscar Millett's Home Fitness Center, and doing hybrid HIIT training, and they've got a treadmill, recumbent bike, and then an elliptical. And so stuff's going to happen. My journey's going to continue, and I'm just so fortunate because that big decision that I made to start working out here at Rachelle's Home Fitness Center on March 21st, Saturday morning, March 21st, that decision has ultimately made it easy for me to make this big decision to come back into the same market where I started my fitness journey and say, gyms are on pause. Not doing that. It's about two other individuals that I need to protect in that situation. I can work out anywhere. I can work out at home. I can make stuff happen. And so, folks, that's all I have for you today. So this coronavirus challenge, think about the ways that it's impacted. Yes, it's impacted all of our lives, but think about the blessings. Think about the positive consequences in terms of developing your character. Because I tell you, 10 years ago, the Rachelle would have been like, oh no, I can't go to the gym. This is not going to be good, this and that. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm doing it with a positive attitude. You got two individuals who sacrificed so much for my siblings and I, and then just really set me up in life, and to think that I'm going to take them for granted and just be selfish and do what I want to do in that situation, not happening. Doing it with joy, folks. So that's my own character development in that area of recognizing it's a matter of public health, family health, public health, protecting other people. That's my perspective. So you develop your own perspectives on different aspects of your life and how you've grown and how you've changed as a result of this pandemic. So that is all I have for you today, folks. Next week, I'm going to wrap this series up with episode 15. And we're going to be wrapping it up talking about talent. And I assure you, I've talked about HR and talent in various respects. This episode is not going to go like you think it will. I assure you. So stay tuned, folks. But until then, remember, I am positively passionate about your fitness and leadership. Make it a great day.